Hi, I'm Anthony Foxx, and welcome back to The Point. Today, we're going to continue the conversation about Envision Charlotte. And with me at this point are Vincent Davis, the Director of Smart Energy Now at Duke Energy, Tom Dorsey, who's a Senior Vice President of Corporate Properties at Wells Fargo, Darlene Heater, who is Vice President of Neighborhood Development for Charlotte Center City Partners, and Tom Shercliffe, who is the Managing Partner of Intelligent Buildings and Envision Charlotte Steering Committee Chair right here in Charlotte. So we want to welcome all of you here. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having us.
So we're having this conversation about Envision Charlotte. What's the big picture for this, Tom?
Well, actually, Envision Charlotte came about when we started working on our 2020 vision planning. And the committees suggested that in addition to being viable, livable, and memorable, that the development of our uptown should also be sustainable. And as we started really putting some thought into what does that mean for our downtown, we recognized this as a great opportunity to really do something special in our downtown. You know, downtowns naturally are very sustainable places, but what could we do in Charlotte, which is not known as necessarily a green or environmentally friendly city? What could we do in our downtown that would kind of put us in front of folks, put us in front of other cities?
So where did the conversation go from there? What happened next?
So probably the biggest opportunity that we saw was with energy, because we have one of the largest energy companies, I think the fourth largest energy company soon, in our downtown and in the city of Charlotte. So we started having conversations about what could that energy program or project look like, and that's where Tom Shercliffe came in.
And so, and we wanted to do that, but make it very specifically measurable. So while advocacy and education are really great things to do, sort of in the spirit of Charlotte of getting things done and showing that, we wanted to have ideas where we could plug in and measure and show very specific progress. We also wanted to have this idea of laser focus. And a lot of other great programs have tried to tackle entire areas at once. We thought that a sub-market at a time was the way to stitch together a city and a county and a region. And so that focus and that measurability was where we went from there to start to build a programmatic approach.
The interesting thing about this is that this isn't mandated. It's not through government specifically. Government helps, but Vincent, can you talk about Smart Energy Now and kind of how it works?
Absolutely. You know, this is truly, I'd say, a very interesting time, not only for Duke Energy, but for the city of Charlotte itself. This is a moment in time where we can actually change how people engage with energy and think about it. So the parameters of the program really are set forth in a manner that suggests that we have a defined marketplace, as Tom indicated. It's any office building within the 277 loop that has at least 10,000 square feet of office space or more. That equates to approximately 21.5 million square feet. And the response from the marketplace has been tremendous. We've signed up over 92% of that addressable market. So we're hearing from our customers that this is something that they truly want to participate in. The whole concept of creating a product that is known as energy efficiency is something that's resonating with our commercial office buildings. You know, our numbers suggest that approximately 30% of the energy that's used in buildings is actually wasted energy. We think that by educating our customer base on things that they can do to reduce consumption, it will move that needle and make that wasted energy a lot less. And that's really what the impetus is for Smart Energy Now.
So Wells Fargo, case in point, got lots of market share in the downtown area. How does Wells Fargo look at a project like this, and why is Wells Fargo engaged?
Well, we're very excited about it. This is one of these things that's the right thing to do, and this is a smart thing to do. It's the right thing to do in terms of our commitment to environmental stewardship. It's a smart thing to do in terms of a lot of our objectives around team members and supporting the community, meeting the needs of our customers and shareholders. If you look on the softer side for the community, reputation and pride that we all want to have in our community, this is a great way to do that. Most people are probably not aware, but if you look at green buildings and sustainability, and look how the U.S. Green Building Council rates them, North Carolina is 11th in the nation of all the states. Charlotte is 16th among all the cities in the number of projects they have. So there's a lot going on. There are a lot of green buildings like the Duke Energy Center that Wells Fargo built. There's also, this really contributes financially to everybody in the community also, which is a great thing for us to be a part of and in front of not just Wells Fargo, but all of the businesses downtown. So.
Well, let's talk about the economics of this, because part of the whole story here is that it creates a competitive advantage for Charlotte. How does it do that?
Well, I think that this starts with the idea that we are rejecting the idea that you have to either be sustainable or you have to run a good business. And so in doing that, what we're trying to do is show that responsible environmental approach is something that can also create financial efficiencies. And so when we get this program up and running, we're going to show on a screen at any building in downtown Charlotte, we are demonstrably a less expensive place to do business and a more sustainable place to do business. And that matters, as Tom said, to their company, for example. They're looking for sustainability and they run a great business. And I think that's how those things come together in terms of an economic development message.
When you look at really recruiting business to Charlotte, your competitive advantages are: is it a less expensive place to do business? Can you attract the labor that those businesses are going to need to prosper in Charlotte? And is it a great place to relocate or to do business? And on all three of those fronts, I think that we have great gains.
Yeah, and I think the follow-on to that, really from a Duke Energy perspective, the cost of maintaining our infrastructure. So as example, we're in a heat wave, basically, and you think about the strain that it puts on our system. This type of initiative can actually help mitigate the costs associated with supplying energy to the buildings in uptown Charlotte. So from a Duke perspective, the cost mitigation factor is very important to us.
And the benefit goes way beyond downtown, too, because Duke Energy Center is an example. That building versus more conventionally designed building saves about 22% of energy that a conventional building would use. Well, that 22% is equivalent to the annual power needs of 450 homes. So again, that does a lot to reduce the burden on the infrastructure.
It's a huge impact. Now, I've got to imagine there are people watching this who are a little skeptical on some fronts. Number one, what kind of job creation opportunities are there here? There's been a lot of conversation nationally about retrofitting. Won't there be a huge retrofit component to this?
Absolutely. You know, one of the things that we've said is that our goal is a 20% reduction of energy usage over a 5-year period. A portion of that will be related to behavioral change. We think that by, again, educating our tenants or the customers on things that they can do to change their behavior, that will result in a 5% reduction. So that leaves about 15% or so that's probably going to be more targeted towards retrofits. We know that for X number of dollars invested in retrofits, that translates into jobs, whether it's the people actually doing the retrofitting itself or whether it's the impact of the reduction to the bottom line for that company, which will allow them to either maintain staffing or bring in new hires. So I think there's a direct correlation to the labor implications around energy efficiency efforts like this.
I think to that point, there are a couple things in the sustainability movement that have been missing or lacking, and that is, as Vincent said, the behavior dimension of it. You don't have to finance behavior. With certain information and education, people want to do things. They're just missing those couple of steps. The other aspect is technology. In every other business segment you can think of, insurance, manufacturing, healthcare, they literally run their businesses on technology. Real estate heretofore has not been that technology savvy. And so what we're doing with these programs, especially Duke Smart Energy Now, is we're injecting technology in there, and what that does everywhere else is it's a low-cost, high-value way to go. So if we start changing this paradigm, as you said about retrofit, from rip and replace boilers and all the lights and those kind of things, and say, could we use software and methods and a little more low-cost, high-value things to get the same results we might have gotten in a purely throw money at it kind of approach?
And Tom mentioned real estate. In this country, 72% of the electricity is used in buildings, and that's where the focus is on real estate.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And of course, the energy is coming from, in some places, sources that can increase the carbon footprint. So when you're using less of it, it's having less of an effect on the environment.
Right, and back to the entire community, the more energy we can save, the less likely it is that we're going to have to build a number of new power plants. We still have to build new power plants, but it'll reduce the amount we have. And not having to build as many means ultimately we'll continue to, this region will continue to have lower power costs.
And that's exactly right, and that connects to what you asked about jobs, right? So if we have economic development as kind of a goal, if we are able to take up to 70 buildings in downtown Charlotte and demonstrably lower their operating cost, that could make rent rates attractive, that could bring in new tenants, that could bring in new companies, and that creates jobs. So we hope that we're at the beginning of a sort of a domino effect in terms of economic development and demonstrating this is the place to come and be, and then that brings jobs not only from the companies locating, but from the building owners who may have vacancy rates, and when they fill up, they need more facility managers and more staff to support those fuller buildings.
Without Envision Charlotte, why would there not have been private sector push on a building-by-building basis to do this? I mean, what's going to be different because Envision Charlotte is here?
I think what had happened was the ROI, the return on investment pitch, had gotten a little bit old when we had the economic slowdown. Because even if there was a good ROI, the time horizons were like almost instantaneous. So the ROI equation didn't work. It really took this group, and especially led by Duke Energy, to create a new business model where for the building owner, it didn't cost anything except the involvement and the participation to start connecting with smart grid technologies and to start measuring, and that was the impetus for it. And now that's how we can get things rolling. So I think it was a really creative, out-of-the-box approach to the business model, not just at an ROI perspective, but at a community, a utility, a university perspective, and all the other corporate citizens and the public-private partnership.
And
I think the measurement and tracking is another important component here, because absent Envision Charlotte, we have 3 or 4 major property owners in the downtown area, and they haven't been asleep at the switch. They've been doing things to keep maintaining their buildings. Having Envision Charlotte really takes everybody out of their comfort zone, because now we've got an objective to reduce another 20%, and what can we do to really raise our game to the next level?
And to be honest with you, we have some really fantastic buildings in our downtown, and they have been doing great things. But we have kind of broadened our reach with Envision Charlotte to where we're reaching out to some of the B and C level buildings, a lot of the smaller buildings, and saying, we can help you with this. And we have partners like Wells Fargo and Bank of America who have said, we will help this community to do a better job with our buildings.
Yeah, from my perspective, it really boils down to a very simple question. Will the community come together in this manner to actually move the needle with regard to sustainability in the urban core, in this case being Charlotte? And I think that when we think about the primary players, obviously Wells Fargo, Bank of America, the city, county, and Duke Energy, in terms of the big 5, that accounts for about 60% of the square footage in this marketplace. But there's another 40% of small and medium-sized businesses that Darlene alluded to, and that's where I think the real beauty of this project comes into play, because now you're bringing together these companies that may not necessarily have a chief sustainability officer, talking to a Wells Fargo and learning best practices. So this whole community approach is really what this project is about, and I think that's the question that the city will answer. Can the community come together to move the needle? And I think the answer is yes. The marketplace has already responded with a 92% uptake saying we want to participate in this.
Yeah, and the collaborative, the best practices things, it just makes me think also this Envision Charlotte is making this a collaborative process, so where we have businesses that will compete on a day-to-day basis, they will share and work together to find those best practices, and how can together we make that 20% goal.
I think that's one of the most powerful points about this, is that we talked earlier about the ROI on a building-by-building basis. That's not exactly what we're talking about. We're talking about, can Charlotte show all communities around the world how a public-private utility academic partnership can work together collectively? And that hasn't been done in again, a hard, plugged-in, measurable way. So there is a bit of an experiment to this. And we're just hoping that Charlotte's history of cooperation in the public-private environment can really show that we can get together, and beyond our individual business concerns, we can do something as a community that does move the needle.
Now tell me, so folks that are watching at home, this doesn't happen without some capital investment. Who pays for the improvements to these buildings?
One of the things too, just to kind of reset a bit, when you talk about Envision Charlotte, there are 4 pillars: energy, air, water, and waste. The energy pillar is the primary pillar that we talk about today when we speak on Envision Charlotte. The primary drivers of that pillar, obviously, were Duke Energy, Cisco, and Verizon. So Duke Energy contributed $4.1 million in capital. Cisco and Verizon each around $1 million apiece, primarily around equipment, the interactive displays, and some of the meter technology and infrastructure going behind the scenes. And then Duke Energy obviously is the really carrying the heavy load in terms of actually getting the program off the ground. So capital investment was certainly a part of this. But again, it's this whole concept of the public-private partnerships that is really the impetus for companies like Verizon and Cisco to kind of raise their hands and say, we want to play together and actually make this work for the city.
Charlotte, as an example,
Exactly.
creates the impetus. But is it the owners of the buildings who will pay for the improvements? How does it work?
It's a mixture. It's owners and tenants that are paying for it. But where you would start off thinking, well, why would they want to pay more money? You start looking, peel back a few layers, and paying money reduces the operating expenses, so it increases the value of the property. So
Vincent, I don't know if you want to talk about the utility, the regulatory environment, how this plays into that, maybe as part of the business model.
Yeah, absolutely. And really, so just when we talk about paying for retrofits, again, the Smart Energy Now program itself is about behavioral change. So there's no cost to our customers to participate, no cost for the behavioral change impacts that we hope to achieve in this project. When we talk about the business imperative for Duke Energy, I mentioned cost earlier. Another component is through the Save a Watt program that we have for Duke Energy. The Smart Energy Now effort is actually folded underneath Save a Watt. So it's part of a cost recovery mechanism that we have, which will allow us to recoup the costs associated with the investment, as well as the lost revenues associated with the reduction in energy usage. So there is a cost effectiveness measure for Duke Energy around the fact that we are educating our customers on how to use less of our product. So can we take that product called energy efficiency, prove that it's cost effective, and then at some point in the future maybe replicate it in other cities within our footprint?
And to that point, you may at the Clinton Global Initiative, when this was announced, the CEO of Cisco said, "We see this public-private partnership as our model for the world," and that's a pretty big stage that he's on. And he mentions China and Europe and other places. So the concept of the public-private partnership to try to help manage scarce resources is something everybody's chasing. And Charlotte is a place where they all came to say, we can get this started and we can prove this out in Charlotte, and then we can replicate it after that.
It's an amazing story. Darlene, there are other pillars of this Envision Charlotte, and you and Vincent might want to talk a little bit about those other pillars and sort of what's next for this effort.
Sure. As Vincent mentioned, most people, when they hear Envision Charlotte, think of the energy program. But we're also fast at work to create model programs for water, air, and waste. So how can we create efficiencies in those focus areas that will help our city to operate better, our business city to operate better and more efficiently, that'll create some competitive advantages?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think that, again, leveraging the Smart Energy Now program as that baseline model, we'd love to be able to replicate that approach. Capital investment, dedicated resources, measurement, goals, public statements around what we want to achieve, take that as the model, and then do the same thing for air, water, waste. Ultimately, if we can have that conversation 12 months from now and we're talking about all four pillars, I think that's a job well done.
And we're being very discreet in how we develop those programs, that it is really, we're looking to develop those programs that show how a community can work together to find solutions. So it's not just about, turning off water to soccer fields, that it is about creating a model program that can be applied in a sub-market that shows how a community works together to create those efficiencies.
Yeah, I think the other thing I would say, too, just following on with that, when you talk about air, for example, well, we're coming to a conclusion where we're thinking that it's going to be difficult to truly measure air quality in the way that we'd like to measure it. So what are some of the things that impact air quality? Gas-powered vehicles. So we're looking at ways to perhaps have a car share program using electric vehicles. Those are the types of things when we talk about measurement. How many cars can you replace? How many people are actually taking mass transit, the link system, the bus, and so forth? So when we talk about an air program, it may not necessarily be the typical, stick a device in the air and measure air quality. It may be the types of things that impact air quality, and how can we directly address those things.
And bringing this back to business development, if we can reduce our need for resources, because resources are scarce, we can end up fueling or supporting more growth in our communities.
Absolutely. Well, this is a really interesting discussion. I want to close with just asking you all the questions. So I'm in the public sector. We've got 11 other members of the City Council who are in the public sector and millions of people out there watching today. What advice do you have to the public sector community in Charlotte for how we can help continue making an effort like this successful in Charlotte?
I would say that most everybody out there has their own version of their own passion about what they want out of sustainability or out of energy efficiency, and look to what's happening with Envision Charlotte and try to glean some information from it, and there's a number of tools we haven't talked about today that are going to spawn off of this, even like smartphone games and those kind of things, and get involved and get connected, and then let your own passion kind of take it from there.
Mm-hmm. And I would say that regardless of whether you live or work in Uptown, which is where Envision Charlotte is primarily focused right now, everybody can make a difference, that you can impact or you can make decisions in your own home that impact the efficiency that Duke Energy can provide electricity to other homes in the county, in the region. So even though this is a phenomenal opportunity for Uptown, for that very focused area, it's a great opportunity for Charlotte, and just pay attention.
Yeah,
Pay attention. There'll be some great things coming.
Excellent.
Yeah, so I'd add two things. One is educate, and the other is stimulate. The education that Charlotte is not only green in terms of trees, it's a leader in sustainability. And the stimulate, Charlotte has already done some of these things, but there are things we can do in our either building code requirements or our permit requirements to make it easier or less expensive for people to maybe fast track getting permits for green buildings. And again, embedding some of that in the actual building requirements to